Hey, well, hello everyone. Bonjour. Oh, I hear my voice. We're good? No, that's okay. Because it'll just distract me. So, hello everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. Bienvenue. Ani bonjour. Guinawea. Hola y bienvenidos. Welcome to FishCAST Annual General Meeting. We are so excited to have all of you join us. My name is Dr. Christina Semeniuk. I am the director of FishCAST, which is an NSERC-funded training program. And this training program was meant to guide the next generation of aquatic scientists in the practice of inclusive partnerships in fisheries conservation and management. I'm addressing you all from the beautiful, wonderful Waiwaetanong, which is also it's an Anishinaabe word for where the river bends. And you might be able to see it if I'm still with my camera on, but this is exactly where the river bends, the Detroit River. So this is where FishCAST is primarily administered, even though we have many PIs in different provinces, as well as our trainees, but we're situated on Treaty 2 territory, which is the traditional lands of the Three Fires Confederacy of First Nations that includes the Ojibwa, the Odawa, and the Potawatomi peoples. Joining me today in this very room is Dr. Catherine Fabria. She's Associate Director of FishCAST. And then we've got Kendra, our wonderful program coordinator. And when I speak about FishCAST, I always like to position the mission of our grant and our program within our values, and to do so by really revisiting our logo. If you take a look on your right, this is our FishCAST logo, which was intentionally drawn to hopefully represent the values of our training program. And what you can see first is we do kind of have an upward turning fish, and it's a symbol of hope for us, especially now in these times and in the times ahead of us. And so we remain ever hopeful. And you can also see that the lines mostly are all interconnected. And the interconnectedness of these lines is meant to recognize the importance and value of reciprocal relationships between place, peoples, our non-human persons and kin. And you can see how they all connect back to water, which is our life supporting system and sustains us. Our logo is also situated within a circle. And this reveals that our journeys are non-linear, but they're actually circular. They're blending in various ways of knowing and learning. And as we go around the circle, we learn more and more. Sometimes we have to go back around the circle as we unlearn and then relearn and learn again. But you can also see that this circle is incomplete. It's incomplete because it symbolizes to us that much more work is needed in our commitments to truth and reconciliation, our goals to a more decolonial approach to our work, and our drive to address systemic barriers in our fields and to work collaboratively to overcome them. This is our shared history, and hopefully this will remain to be our shared future together. But today I am so happy to introduce you to our keynote speaker, Dr. Sonia Ibarra. Dr. Ibarra is Apache, Kashkan, Mexicana, and she grew up in the traditional territories of the Namlaje people in Northern California. Currently, Dr. Ibarra is a postdoctoral fellow and program coordinator of the Damampa program. This is a Yupik word and Supiak word that means all of us at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. Dr. Ibarra, she obtained her BSc in marine biology at Humboldt State University, and she completed her PhD and obtained her fisheries PhD degree at the University of Alaska at Fairbanks in 2021. But really importantly, it's not the accreditation of the education that Dr. Ibarra has done, even though it has been outstanding. It's that Dr. Ibarra prioritizes research with Indigenous communities as part of an effort to center Indigenous people's needs, values, and knowledge systems within Western higher education institutions, and recognition that these institutions, at best, dismiss and ignore Indigenous peoples and their knowledge, and at worst, erase them. And so Dr. Ibarra's work has also taken her on a very personal journey, which I will leave to Sonia to tell, but that has inspired the work that she does in co-creation, decolonization, and indigenization, but is also equally so inspirational to us all. So can you please join me in providing a really warm welcome for Dr. Sonia Ibarra? Thank you. Miigwech, gracias. Merci. And I'm going to stop sharing so that Dr. Ibarra can take over.
Gracias for that wonderful introduction. And I'm new to Teams, so please bear with me as I navigate this process.
Of course, please take your time.
So I'm not quite sure. Can you see my PowerPoint?
We can see your PowerPoint, but it's not on now. It's perfect. We see it
Okay.
exactly as you want it.
Okay. So I can't see the audience, so I apologize if I'm not able to catch your chat, but I will definitely look at it towards the end of my presentation. Okay. So buenos dias, good morning. My name is Sonia Ibarra, and as was shared, I'm the DeMonta Program Coordinator at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. And today I'm going to be sharing about my journey of weaving culture, science, and identity. And as I take you on this journey with me, I think it's important to be grounded in our time together. And what grounds me the most is my family and my culture. I'm Apache on my mother's side, Cascan on my father's side. My family is from Mexico. And not only am I a daughter and sister, I'm also an auntie. And my family, my culture not only has defined who I am as an individual, but also as a researcher. So I just want to take a moment to also extend an invitation to all of those that are present here today to bring your ancestors and your people into this space. I also grew up in the traditional territories of the Namlaki people, signified here with the letter A in Northern California. And this landscape has very much defined my upbringing and my connection to place. Annotated here with the letter B is where I'm calling from today in the traditional territories of Okwan. But my journey was not linear, as even though in this map it looks like it was. And I think it's important to talk about that journey and that growth and development. As was shared in my introduction, my background during my undergraduate career was started off as a marine biologist from Humboldt State University and using diving as a tool and technique to do research. And that led me all across the world from studying sea otter ecology in Washington State to doing genetic research in the Philippines, as well as studying algal communities between inner coast waters of Juneau, Alaska, and outer coast waters of Sitka, Kauai, or also known as Sitka, denoted in B, where I used other technical skills such as dry suit diving to explore algal communities. And I share these experiences because from an external point of view, I learned a lot about the methodologies commonly used in Western science frameworks. But I also started, as I transitioned from my undergraduate career towards graduate school, I started to ask myself some really deep questions about when we think about science and data, what type of information is missing? And oftentimes, traditional ecological knowledge or traditional knowledge, also known as indigenous knowledge, is often missing from the picture, as well as local ecological knowledge. And it's through my experiences of spending deep time in community um, around the campfire, sharing traditional foods with indigenous peoples and elders and youth and adults that I made this realization. It wasn't through my academic journey. And as I started to explore these questions, I also started to ask myself, who is missing from what it means or exemplifies to be a scientist or a researcher? And that led me to think deeply about questions of equity, of who's included and who is not, and also representation questions of whose information drives advocacy, drives the way that we learn at higher institutions, so education, research, and how that trickles down into management. So as I started to think about these questions, I also started to reflect of, well, what could inclusive research look like? It could include shared power and decision making, such as defining the work together with the communities we intend to serve, identifying benefits and risks to local people because they know best, working side by side with local people to do the work together, so local participation in the work, and then learning local customs, cultures, and customs to help us better understand how to give ways beyond data. And as I started to think about these questions about research, I also started to look introspectively within myself, not only of how can I decolonize research, how can I support Indigenous values and priorities in people, but also how can I do this with myself? As I shared earlier, I'm Apache and Cascan and Mexicana, but because of the impacts of colonization on my people and especially my family, there's a lot of things that I don't know. And so as an adult, I'm reconnecting with my identity, with my culture, and learning not only how to decolonize research, but also how to decolonize myself. And so, with that, all of these deep reflections, that's where I started my PhD journey. And so, I wanted to share a little bit of details about my PhD research that was done together with tribes in Southeast Alaska to address a complex resource conflict, people, sea otters, and shellfish in Southeast Alaska. And I just want to take a moment and express my deepest and humblest gratitude to the Akwan for their past, present, and future stewardship. I think it's really critical and important to not only think about whose lands we we whose lands we live on, where we work, where we recreate, but also to also think deeply about what is our commitment to the Indigenous people of these places. And so I hope throughout this presentation, we will see examples of that. I also want to acknowledge Kikwan, Hinyaquan, and Hadas Klaga, and I'll talk about the communities associated with these traditional territories in just a moment. So uh, one of the driving forces in my work is the interaction between sea otters and people. And so sea otters are voracious predators. They consume about a quarter of their weight every single day, and they're shellfish eaters, such as this sea otter consuming a clam. And they also consume a variety of other species that are of commercial significance, such as sea urchins, sea cucumbers, gooey ducks, Dungeness crab, and abalone, although there's no longer a fishery for abalone. These species are also important to subsistence harvesters, as sea otters consume also a variety of other clam species that are important for subsistence harvesters. And so this competition for complex resource conflicts, this competition for shared shellfish resources has resulted in a very complex resource conflict. And this is also compounded by social and environmental inequities. So one possible approach to address complex resource conflicts could be this concept of social ecological systems that recognizes that people and the environment are linked in very complex ways, that solutions or compromises should be based on realistic thresholds and can include weaving various knowledge systems together and centers on adaptation and change. And so for this complex resource conflict, I'm going to talk about the ways that we looked at these social and ecological dimensions as well as management. And this will be the outline for today's presentation as well. So the region of focus for this work was in Southeast Alaska, in the traditional territories of Kikwan, the Shingat community of Cake, the traditional territories of Hinyaquan and the Shingat, Haida, and non-native communities of Klowak and Craig, and the traditional territories of Hadas Klaga and the Haida village of Heidelberg. And while there's a diverse group of cultures and peoples and worldviews that are represented by these communities, what is a unifying thread is that access to subsistence foods is critical to the well-being of community members. And so from this point forward, I'm going to pivot and I'm going to stop using the word subsistence because it doesn't fully exemplify the relationship that people have to these traditional foods. And it's the advice that I learned from tribal leaders to recognize these foods as customary traditional foods because of the deeply embedded intergenerational knowledge and transmittance of where you find these foods, how do you process them, um, and and there's also aspects of spirituality, the spirit of the land, the water, the spirit of the fish, the shellfish, the sea otter. It also includes deeply embedded place-based knowledge and a complex sharing and distribution system where your wealth is not measured by how much money is in your pocket, but how much you share these foods. Additionally, in the state of Alaska, where I'm calling from, subsistence can be a loaded term in terms of it's been defining subsistence has been weaponized in a way that has impacted Indigenous people's access to these traditional foods. And so this work focuses on understanding the relationship between sea otters, Indigenous peoples, and shellfish by weaving Indigenous, local, and Western knowledge systems. And I wanted to share some personal reflections about this journey of weaving knowledge systems. And I think it warrants a couple of things. The first being the need to recognize various forms of expertise and knowledge, where it should not be that solely Western concepts, such as obtaining master's and PhD degrees, are the only way to recognize experts. Indigenous people that have been in deep relation and connection to the land and water are experts, with or without these degrees. The complementary validation within a body of knowledge, where, for instance, Indigenous knowledge is understood, gathered, documented from an Indigenous lens, rather than taking Indigenous knowledge and only solely understanding and validating that knowledge against another knowledge system that can lean us down a potentially dangerous pathway of superimposing values of one knowledge system over another. And when we think about the history of science, that is a strategy that has been used to silence voices. We also need to be willing to recognize that there are power disparities between researchers, scientists, agency folks, and communities, where a research project or a research idea should not be licensed to do research in any way that the scientist deems that's the way the work should be done. There's an inherent power dynamic in that experience. And so I think it's important to share power with the people and communities that we intend to serve. And relational accountability, where we're not only accountable to our funders, but also the relationships that we develop in communities. So next, I wanted to share a comparison of Indigenous and Western sea otter management through a temporal representation here. And I just want to note that this timeline is not to scale. If it was, the blue and the red on the far right would not be visible with our eyes. We'd have to use a microscope. So over thousands of years, Indigenous people have been in relationship and managing sea otters compared to the decades of Western management. The blue representing state management when the state of Alaska reintroduced sea otters into Southeast Alaska in the late 1960s, and the red representing federal management of sea otters through U.S. Fish and Wildlife and the implementation of the Marine Mammal Protection Act in 1971. So as we think about this complex resource conflict, if we are to explore deeply realistic thresholds and solutions and compromises, to me, it only makes sense to lean heavily on thousands of years of relationship, history, and management of sea otters and lean on Indigenous people to help us draw these solutions together. And this understanding is confirmed through oral history accounts as well as archaeological research. So here I just wanted to share a quick review of how Indigenous people throughout the range of sea otters from the Western Aleutian Islands, Southeast Alaska, Northern British Columbia, to the Northern Channel Islands have been in relationship with sea otters, have been managing sea otters and harvesting sea otters in important shellfish areas to produce large and abundant shellfish populations. So next, just want to share some of the questions that we asked to address the social dimension or components of the social dimension of this complex resource conflict. So we asked a variety of questions, but here I'll just focus on one. How are sea otters impacting customary and traditional foods? So before we ever conducted this work, we traveled to community and approached each of the tribes in each of these 4 communities, myself and Dr. Stephen Langdon, to introduce what we hope to do, some of the methods, and elicit feedback and guidance how to move forward. And so we talked about during these meetings the 5 social science methods that we hope to employ, including semi-structured interviews, structured questionnaires, mapping exercises, site visits, and participant observer trips. And so I just want to take a moment to pause here and reflect on this moment. It's not very often that we capture critical or pivotal moments in our lives. And this image here represents one of the most important moments in my PhD journey. In all 4 communities, there was a strong concern for using mapping exercises to document where people harvest customary and traditional shellfish foods. And they shared that in the past, that same technique had been used in every single one of these communities to map where people harvest their traditional foods. Those maps made publicly available. Commercial fisheries opened up for those resources in ways that did not benefit the community. So, in a recognition of this historical legacy of extracting knowledge in a very colonial way, we worked with the tribe to discuss a plan of how can we protect this knowledge and be able to document in a quantitative approach the changes that community members are experiencing. And so through this process, we came to the agreement that none of these maps would ever be published or shared. They would be owned and archived with the tribe. And all we would do from the research lens is to create a very boring summary table of how many linear miles of coastline shellfish had declined over time. And this was reinforced through a memorandum of understanding that we had with each of the tribes. During these meetings, we also talked about identifying and compensating harvest experts. And when I refer to harvest experts, I'm specifically recognizing customary and traditional harvesters, sea otter hunters, and elders that we interviewed during this process. We also talked about hiring community members to help shape the research and help us make decisions about how we do the work together. So for the question, how are sea otters impacting customary and traditional foods? I want to talk about the results next. So 100% of harvest experts said that as time went on and sea otter populations expanded, there were smaller and fewer shellfish at beaches with sea otters. 100% of harvest experts also said that as time went on and sea otter populations expanded, there's a decline in harvestable shellfish areas. Now, I do want to note this is not an actual harvest map. This is just a figure to illustrate a point. So in summary, we found that there were smaller and fewer shellfish at locations with sea otters. There was a decline in shellfish availability as compared to the bass due to sea otters and other factors that I can talk about at the end of this talk if anybody's interested. And that harvest areas had contracted and shifted away from sea otters. So next, I'm going to talk about the ecological dimension of this complex resource conflict and some of the questions that we asked. The first being, how do sea otters influence clam populations and how do people influence clam populations? So for the methods of this dimension, we worked with local harvest experts to select sites as well as sampling protocols. We hired community members to participate and help shape the research. And we conducted intertidal clam and shell pit surveys in a subset of the communities that we worked, specifically Heidelberg and Cake. We focused and we also deeply embedded aspects of research reciprocity into our work, where we actually spent half of our time in community specifically devoted to research reciprocity. So the focus of the clam surveys was specifically on butter clams because they're a common species. They're important food for people and sea otters. They're not commercially harvested, so it can help us disentangle that effect. And they're an excellent candidate for community monitoring because it doesn't require any expensive or specialized tools such as scuba diving equipment. So this is the study design for the intertidal clam surveys that we conducted in Heidelberg and Cake. So we sampled clams at beaches where only people harvest clams, beaches where people harvest clams and sea otters are starting to show up, so locations of interaction, beaches where sea otters consume clams, and beaches too far for people to go and sea otters have not showed up yet. And these intertidal clam surveys were conducted by laying a transect or measuring tape parallel to the shoreline along the zero tide mark. And we dug 10 random holes that were quarter meter by quarter meter by quarter meter cubed. And then we dug the contents of each of those pits, sifted them, and then sorted the clamshells by species, and then took width measurements. In order to measure sea otter activity or sea otter predation, develop an index of sea otter predation at each of these beaches. Along the same transect line, we collected all the shells along the surface and then categorized them by who we had evidence had consumed that clam. So sea otters were characteristically bring a clamshell to the surface and use a tool such as a rock to break the shell near the hinge and then pop the shell open. And so it's a very characteristic evidence for sea otter predation. So we use that plus the number of pits or holes that have been dug by sea otters to develop an index of sea otter predation at each of these locations. To measure human activity or human harvest of clams at these sites, we measured distance from the community center to the clam survey site, assuming that locations close to the community had higher harvest intensities of shellfish, and this was confirmed through interviews as well as conversations with local harvest experts. So for the first question, how do sea otters influence clam populations? These are the results. So let me walk you through this data. So on the vertical or y-axis, we have butter clam size. On the horizontal or, sorry, x-axis, we have sea otter activity. Each of these bars represents a beach. So low sea otter activity beaches are denoted in black. High sea otter activity beaches are denoted in red. And this dotted horizontal line along 37 millimeters is the minimum size of butter clam reproduction. So in Heidelberg, we saw that butter clam sizes decreases with high sea otter activity sites. And it's really important to note that at these high sea otter activity sites or locations where there's high sea otter predation on clams, the average size denoted by this bolded circle or bolded dot in the middle was below the minimum size of reproduction for many of these locations, meaning that sea otter predation at these beaches has the potential of negatively impacting the reproductive potential of butter clams at these locations. Next, we asked, how do people influence clam populations? So this figure is very similar to the previous. We're on the vertical, on the vertical or y-axis is clam size, and on the horizontal axis is distance to community in kilometers. And so what we saw in Heidelberg is that butter clam size decreases as you get farther away from the community. And I think it's also important to note that these highest sea otter activity sites are predominantly 20 kilometers away from the community. And this is an intentional consequence of Heidelberg indigenous sea otter hunters harvesting sea otters close to their community to enhance local shellfish populations. And we can see this in the data that this has resulted in evidence of sea otter predation farther away from the community. In order to give back to the community beyond data, we also embedded aspects of research reciprocity. So we harvested hundreds of pounds of customary and traditional foods that were gathered and shared with the community, including the senior center and community, to single mothers and other people in need, as a way to give in ways that represented the values, the priorities, and culture of the community. And also as a way, many of the folks that I worked with were students, as a way to empower them to guide these harvests. So we did this all with the consent of the community as well. So in summary, clams were smaller where there was more sea otter activity. Human harvest of sea otters facilitated larger clams. And it's important to think about how to give back to communities beyond data. So next, we're going to focus on this management dimension. And we asked 3 questions here. The first being, what are current Indigenous management recommendations for restoring balance between people and sea otters? Are there barriers to these management recommendations? And what are past Indigenous sea otter management strategies? So we use the same methods here as we did for the social dimension, so I won't go into detail on that anymore. So for the first question, how are current Indigenous management recommendations for restoring balance between people and sea otters? 100% of harvest experts talked about the need to increase sea otter hunting. And Anthony Christensen from Heidelberg says, well, the only thing that is going to deal with them is more hunting. You have to pick up the pressure. You have to figure out what an acceptable corridor is for them to manage themselves within, so that they are not impacting all of the resources across the entire region, because they have that potential. 85% of harvest experts were very explicit that hunting need to be locally, close to the community. Lloyd Davis from Cake says, I'm hoping that there's some young guys that are going to want to fight for our grounds right here and try to keep these sea otters from right in front of town here. Next, we asked, are there barriers to these Indigenous management recommendations? And there were several, and I'm just going to kind of go through these quickly and focus on a few. Some of the barriers included the need for fuel and financial subsidies to local sea otter hunting because of how expensive it is to participate in this cultural activity and management activity. The need to establish a local tannery to help offset costs. Legal changes to the Marine Mammal Protection Act. So currently, an Indigenous hunter sower must create a significantly altered handicraft, a finished product such as the one worn here by Frank Hughes in Cake, in order to sell to a non-native person. So what people were recommending is the ability to sell the whole hide, because not every hunter is an artist, a sower, a marketer, etc. And the development of a market to sell these sea otter handicrafts. And lastly, addressing blood quantum. So there's just changes happening in flux as we speak, but at the time of the research, only people that were documented 1/4 Alaska Native were allowed to harvest sea otters, sow sea otters, anything that was an unfinished product. And there was concerns by harvest experts that we interviewed that if their child intermarried a non-native person, that their grandchild would not be considered native enough by the federal government to participate in this cultural and management activity. And it's a really interesting concept, blood quantum, because it's not only been used in the context of sea otter management to limit who is eligible and native enough to harvest sea otters, to work with sea otter hides, but it's also been a technique used in the United States and Canada to take away land from Indigenous people, to take away rights from Indigenous people. So this is currently in flux in terms of federal management, and lawyers have been brought into interpreting the law, and there is new understanding and of who's actually eligible, although that is not common knowledge amongst harvesters. So the agency is trying to share that now it could be up to tribes to decide who is eligible. So lastly, what are past Indigenous sea otter management strategies? And 10% of harvest experts shared oral history accounts of maintaining balance through sea otter hunting that was used in the past. And Debbie Head from Craig says, I want to share something that I've heard over the years, passed down by my elders, and it spoke really strong to me, and that's why I remember it. canoeing in the boat, a young man going out to hunt, and he looks over and he says to the sea otter bobbing, he says, "You better go to the outside waters or you're going to end up a headman's headdress." Or people talk to them and they said, "You better go to the outside." And that's how I heard it, and that's how it was. There was an understanding between the otter people and the people that inhabited an area, and they saw them and they talked to them. "You better go to the outside waters or you're going to end up a headman's headdress." So our people were really, we went to war and many people died because of boundary disputes. And all of our people were not just people. We had otter people, we had wolf people, eagle people, we had raven people, the spirit of all these creatures, the killer whale people. There was always an understanding between the people and the other people, and they held their boundaries. I believe we held our boundaries. We're not doing a really good job of that right now. And so when I reflected on this oral history account that Debbie shared, I asked her, what does out there mean? And she wasn't quite sure if that meant just far from outside of the community or far on the outer waters of the archipelago of islands that consist of this region known as Southeast Alaska. But what she did understand and did know was that there was an area that was specifically used to enhance local shellfish population where sea otters were harvested. And then outside of the area, sea otters were respected and recognized for their role of bringing back kelp and all these other ecosystem services that they serve. So there was an understanding that reflects contemporary ways of viewing the world, such as marine spatial planning, that were deeply embedded and utilized. So in summary, harvest experts talked about the need for more local sea otter hunting, the creation and maintenance of local sea otter exclusion zones, and the need to address various barriers for local sea otter hunting to be successful. So I just want to end with a couple of broad research conclusions. The first being that complex resource conflicts may benefit from this social ecological approach. These drastic declines in shellfish due to sea otters and other factors have negative consequences for rural communities. Yet indigenous communities, such as in Heidelberg, are adapting. And I think it's important to broaden our understanding and recognize local people as local managers. And I just wanted to come back and take another reflection of my experience of weaving knowledge systems. And it's been an ongoing process of unpacking colonial assumptions and methodologies, and recognizing that all knowledge is not all knowledge is meant to be shared, and in fact, such as the mapping exercises, should be protected. This work takes a great deal of time and trust. And I just wanted to share this concept, anthropological concept of do no harm, where we not only carefully outweigh the consequences or impacts of our research today, but well into the future. And one of the ways that I unpacked all of these key points that I share with you today is through some questions that I want to lean on Dr. Charles Menzies, who's a scholar from the Kitkatla Nation, that I use to help guide me and be accountable to the people that I intended to serve. And I printed these questions in giant letters and had them on top of my desk, and I looked at them throughout my PhD journey, and I still look at them today. And the first being, why is this research being done? What is the motivation? And being very critical and dissecting this question. Who is this research being done for? If we say that this research is being done to support communities in X, Y, and Z, unless we are working very closely with those communities to identify their priorities and their needs, it's really hard to answer this question in an honest way. Does this research really need to be done? And this question really hits home because one of my last summers in Heidelberg doing clam surveys was my last time to gather data. This was it. And then it was going to be the writing phase of the dissertation journey. And there was a young person that disappeared at sea. And community members approached me and said, we need you to help find this person and bring them home. So I used resources, including grant funds at my disposal. So specifically for fuel for the boat that I was renting to try to find this person. and bring them back home. And then it went from trying to find them to trying to recover their body and donning on scuba diving equipment. And we found articles of his clothing as he struggled. And as we found pieces of his clothing, we thought we were getting closer and closer, and we never ended up finding him. But in that moment, the most important thing that I could do was try to find and bring this person back home. It wasn't to collect gland data research. So I just want to wrap up here with where am I today? And I currently am the program coordinator for a graduate training program called DMUMPTA at the University of Alaska Fairbanks that is focused on transforming Western and Indigenous fisheries and marine sciences together. We have a huge and growing team of faculty and fellows, students that we're supporting, primarily Indigenous as well as non-Indigenous students. And the focus of this project is to not only transform graduate education in fisheries and marine sciences, but to be a supported program for the next generation of Indigenous and allied students. So that means not just focusing on academic wellness, but on physical wellness, spiritual wellness, mental wellness, as well as engaging in decolonizing Indigenous approaches across the University of Alaska Fairbanks and our partners. And I'm also a mom. My son just turned last week, and it's been a very interesting process as a new mom in academia and navigating how do I show up and how do I continue to have this work-life balance and honor one of the most important aspects of my life, which is being a mother. So with that, I will take any questions, and so grateful to have a discussion with everyone here today.
Gracias, Sonia. Thank you so much. So I can warn the person, we can see if they're here. Do you know who's up first? Is it Alfred? Alfred, are you with us right now? Or are you still on a break?
I am here. Wow.
Yeah. Hi, Alfred. Well, okay, well, welcome back, everyone. Bienvenue. We are going to now start the presentation from our trainees. We've never done this before, so this is the first for everyone. So it's going to be really exciting. And please feel free to use the chat to encourage the trainees, ask them questions that they could address afterwards. Don't worry, we're not going to cut you off at 1 minute. But you know what? We just really wanted to celebrate you and your experiences through FishCAST, no matter where you are in the stage of your degree. And even if you slag FishCAST, that's your opinion. We're happy with it.
PCR.
Okay, ready.
Okay,
So we'll go next, and I'll mute myself.
It's trying. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Alfred Otieno. I'm a PhD student at the University of Toronto Scarborough campus. I'm being supervised by Nick Mandrak and George Aunditsis. It's my second year now. I did my first year, finished all my coursework. Then I started my second year working on ecological models. I want to develop a food web model for Lake Ontario. Specifically, I've started with Hamilton Harbour and Bay of Quinte. What I've learned patience. The last, from September to December, things were not working out. I'm working with a long-term data set from Hamilton Harbour from 1988 to 2023. Data that was sampled and different projects or maybe different administrations, different research designs. Trying to understand it. I took like 5 months. But yeah, I'm glad that finally something is coming out. I'm seeing some progress in it. We've developed some mixed models to look at the variabilities. There are quite variabilities in the data set, the year, with the months, with the sites that were sampled and the time. There are day and night sampling. I wish I would have shown you. There are quite nice trends that are coming out. My supervisor at least are happy. And this January, we started seeing something coming out, and I started getting some relief. Yeah, so I'm so glad being part of FishCAST. I'm sorry, I don't even know whether I'm taking more than 1 minute.
Keep going.
Yeah. Yeah, but I'm so glad being part of FishCAST, and I'm sure that there are good things coming out of my research, and it will be very impactful because I've decided to do something that is worth helping the community, like how the presentation that has just happened previously talking about. You do something that is impactful rather than just having some certificate coming out with a PhD, but do something that is impactful. I'll be traveling to Zambia this Saturday. Yeah, for some workshops, still linking African Great Lakes and the Laurentian Great Lakes, and I'll come back on 8th. That should be next Saturday. But I'm so glad to be part of FishCAST. You guys have really been patient with me while I got lost, disappeared looking through my data. I wasn't understanding what is happening, but at least finally something is coming out. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alfred. And I love how everyone's remarking on how your study site, it's so cold, looks so hard. But for you, the harshness was the data. And you know what? That's something that trainees are all probably going to reflect on. When it comes to the data portion, they're like, please put me back out into the field. Thank you, Alfred. That was wonderful. And I wish you a very safe, successful trip. And say hi to Nick for us if you're going to be overlapping with him. Thank you again, Alfred. That was wonderful. All right, who do we have next? Oh, we have Kevin. Hi, Kevin. Oh, I hope Kevin's joined us. I did see him on.
Hi.
Oh, hi, Kevin. Okay, good. Whenever you're ready.
Sorry, I lost the camera button. Yeah, so I was just going to talk about one big takeaway from the FishCAST training experience for me was learning about all the alternative career pathways to other than academia coming out of grad school. I've enjoyed like a lot of our training programs where we've had past trainees on that have talked about their experiences, and it opened like a lot of doors and ideas for me about stuff that I could do, things that I haven't previously thought about. And while you're like busy as a grad student all the time thinking about your project and your research and you're kind of in an academic setting, it's always been nice and refreshing to hear about people's experiences branching out outside of that, and how much cool research goes on outside of academia too. And one thing that exposed me to that was the internship that I did through FishCAST with the Upper Great Lakes Management Unit of the MNR. I got to go out on some of their boats and see the management and the research that they're doing. Yeah, so it was really cool. So to wrap up my lightning talk, I think one of the biggest takeaways and things I've appreciated the most from FishCAST was hearing like diversity of stuff that goes on in aquatic conservation.
That's awesome, Kevin. Thank you so much. You have to tell us where you caught that fish. Was that part of your research, or was that just something fun on the side?
Yeah, that was part of my research, actually.
Wow.
I was on a lab boat with my supervisor, Brian, and we were fishing for some Chinook salmon for my project. Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. Because sometimes I know Brian makes the students fish for, just to give them some lunch that day. So that's pretty good you did it for. I'm sorry, I know Brian is on. This is just a joke. We're being recorded, so that was a complete joke, Brian. You do not do that to your students. We'll talk after, Kevin. No, that was really, really great. Thank you so much, and congratulations on landing that fish. That's awesome, and we're so glad that you find that there are diverse perspectives, because it's true. There is many, many better alternatives to academia. Talking from someone in academia. So good luck to you, Kevin, and we're really, really excited to see where you're going to head next. So thank you, and for your contributions to FishCAST. Amazing. All right. Who do we have next, Kendra? Oh, Rizlan. And is Rizlan here today?
Yes.
Oh, salut Rizlan. Okay.
Salut. Hi everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. My name is Rizlan. I'm a PhD student at UQAR, Université du Québec à Rimouski. I'm co-supervised by Céline Audet at UQAR and Christina Semeniuk at the University of Windsor. And actually, this is gonna be my last session as a PhD student, and so as a FishCAST trainee. And I want just to take this opportunity to say thank you to FishCAST and everyone involved in FishCAST for all the incredible experiences, that learning experiences that I've had as a FishCAST trainee all over the 4 years. So from all the seminar series that we've had, each session. So it was really interesting, full of engaging and multidisciplinary talks from all over the freshwater science researcher across Canada. It was really interesting, and I have a book full of notes from FishCAST, from all the 4 years of as a FishCAST trainee. Then I like the micro credential, even though I couldn't really participate in all of them, but I really learned so much thing about the one, especially on outreach, learning how to communicate science to a broader audience, something that I'm really passionate about, as I really aim for a career in science communication in the future. So I hope so. That's my goal. Then for all the workshops during the conferences, I found that it's really a great idea. I've had the chance to attend 2 of them, and actually it was really a good idea, as it was a chance to learn more, to reflect more, and especially to meet the other FishCAST trainees, or FishCAST people in person rather than just online. So I really liked it. And finally, for the FishCAST internship, I had the privilege to conduct 2 full internships with a collaboration with a private outfitter in Quebec. So it's a kind of a private hatchery system for brook char aquaculture, where first I explored the behavior of stocked brook char, so to see how domestication could affect the behavioral profiling, and if this behavioral profile could persist even after stocking. So the result is really promising, and actually the manuscript is ready to be submitted for the special issue of FishCAST in the Environmental Biology of Fish journal, I think. Yes. So the result is really promising, and it's have direct application yes, for the outfitter or the producer. And actually, with all of that, I want just to say a heartfelt thank you to FishCAST and everyone involved for making this opportunity possible for me. It was really such an amazing journey as a FishCAST trainee. So thank you, and have a good day.
Thank you so much, Ghislaine. I don't even know what to say to that, except we are so grateful that you're a part of the program, and we're so happy that you found it to be successful. And Céline Audet says, bravo, Ghislaine. And we all say, and so collectively, we all wish you best of luck for your defense that's coming up. So if we can all send positive thoughts to Ghislaine when she defends her thesis in a few weeks ahead of time, and for your successes in science communication and your postdoc into your future, you will be a success no matter what. So thank you, Ghislaine, for allowing us to be part of your journey. Merci encore. Right, so very, very grateful. All right, from Ghislaine, who do we have next? Nina. Salut, Nina. Bienvenue.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay,
Yes,
perfect.
très bien.
I'm a PhD student under the supervision of Céline Audet and Régent Tremblay, and I'm coming from the same university as Rizlan. One of the things I learned with the FishCAST program was through one of the micro-credential workshop we had last year with Stephen Cook. He talked about the co-production, and I realized while you were talking that my supervisors were actually doing that, and it really helps me to understand what it is and to identify it, and mostly to apply it during my PhD or the internship I'm currently doing, by making sure that everyone involved in the projects are correctly informed of what I'm doing. And here you have a screenshot of a code I'm currently working on for an internship I'm doing with the Quebec Ministry of the Environment. and we're working on a database of stomachal contents of striped bass sampled in several parts of the St. Lawrence and its Gulf in order to determine their feeding habits and preferred prey. And where I think FishCAST is really helping me is that we obtained the permissions to use the data to write a scientific paper related to my project, PhD project, while the ministry will use my analysis to publish a report on striped bass feeding in the wild. So we are really collaborating together on this data. So I would like to thank FishCAST for that.
Oh, that's excellent, Nina. And I'm looking at your code and I'm jealous that it looks so well annotated. So congratulations on that too. That is
Thank you.
quite a success. I'm really glad that you were able to have a learning moment with us. Thank you for sharing that, Nina. Félicitations et bonne chance avec tous vos données. Super, says Céline. Thank you, Nina. Next, Albana. Yes, we're excited to hear about anything from you.
Hi everyone. I'm excited to be here and listening to everybody's updates is awesome. I had a good year last year. I had a lot of opportunities. One of the big ones that I had was being able to study abroad and do a research internship last semester at the University of Oxford and supported by MyTax, which is really great. I worked on developing a community-led guidance for monitoring aquatic resources in rivers and streams. And I learned a lot along the way. It was a very collaborative project. We worked with community members and indigenous leaders in Peru and in Thailand. And then we also worked with researchers at Oxford to really develop a guidance that was technical and practical and met the needs of communities. So that was a really big learning curve and super exciting and a great opportunity. I just put a picture here of what downtown looked like while I was there, and then also a picture of a starling murmuration that we hiked in the countryside to watch at sunset, which is very beautiful. And currently in my final stretch of my PhD and with the FishCAST program too, and just grateful for everything that has come my way through this program and hopefully get to see some folks in person at the FishCAST conference next month.
That's amazing, Albana. Thank you so much for sharing that incredible opportunity. Can you tell me how long again were you there for in total with your travels?
Last semester. So their semester started in October, so just around Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And then came back for Christmas.
That's amazing. Oh, I'd love for you to actually write that up in terms of your experiences and share that. That's incredible. So congratulations, Albana.
Thank you.
And I love that murmuration that you could. That's a beautiful photograph too.
Thanks.
Wow. And oh yes, Kendra wanted me to shout out your FishCAST shirt too. So that's where we were going. So well done, Kendra. Thank you for sharing that, Albana. Congratulations again. All right, who do we have next up? Who's on our lineup? Jesus, welcome. It's good to see you again. You might still be muted. Or away. Let me just check if you're on the chat. Can anyone see Jesus on the chat yet? Let me see. Don't. Okay. Well, I saw him earlier today. Okay.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, you know what? Is Jesus a supervisor here? Because we could say that Jesus presented his research internationally and was building connections at the 23rd Fish Immunology and Vaccination Workshop, also part of the BioAqua 2024 from Biotic Research. So it seems like Jesus was really, really busy presenting his work all over the globe. These look like international conferences as well. So congratulations, Jesus. That's really, really good. And we'll follow up with Jesus to make sure that I didn't say anything wrong. All right. Thank you. Okay. Declan, okay, so Declan will be a video for us. Mm. Mm. That's amazing. So congratulations to Declan too. That's fantastic. And so just as a quick aside, Kendra and I do want to know what you're doing next. If you're going to be leaving the program, what are you up to? We do it for both reasons because we really care, and there's also non-altruistic reasons because it's really great to show back to NSERC whether or not our trainees are getting the jobs that they want, and do we help facilitate any of that? So thank you, Declan, for sharing. That was great. We've got Kristen next up. Whenever you're ready, Kristen, take it away.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, coming through.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Kristen Sear. I'm a PhD candidate in the Predictive Ecology Lab supervised by Dr. Semenyak at the University of Windsor. And one of the main things that I've really taken away from FishCAST is understanding how to apply those human dimensions to my own research. And, all the micro-credentials that we've taken, they really leave a lot of space for us to talk about our own personal experiences and helping us to understand how our research needs to consider these human dimensions, whether it's people, places, or animals, and our responsibility to those three things. And so this summer, I really got to learn that, it's not always as you expect it when you put that into like the actual environment or like your actual study. And so this is a picture, as you can see, of my entire team sleeping outside next to the river. And one of the things we had to do was tag fish. So we had to also catch those fish. And that meant that we had a lot of people helping us fish for them. But they would come in the morning and be available at night. And so I really wanted to accommodate that, understanding that these people are coming out on their own time. So I wanted to be the one that was accommodating. But I quickly realized that it is just not sustainable to be working from morning to night, trying to catch these fish. And what I really took away from this was that we also had to set boundaries for ourselves and consider our own needs as well. And so after this picture was taken, we did adjust our schedule, and we still ended up catching the amount of fish that we wanted to catch while having those boundaries and still making those connections and keeping those relationships with our partners.
Fantastic. So did you ever nap next to them, Kristen?
I can't nap.
Fair enough. I'm really, really glad that you learned those two. It's like what we learn in one avenue, in one media, when you put it into practice, it can be really different. But you know what? Like you said, you learn, you adapt, you pivot, you adjust, you unlearn, and then you keep going forward. And like you still got the same number of fish. So that's a really, really good moral of the story. Take care of yourself, and you're going to be taking care of others at the same time. So thank you for sharing that, Kristen. That was awesome. I really appreciate that. Yay. All righty. Next, Reagan. Welcome.
Hi. Oh, sorry. I'm a master's student in the Cook Lab as well. I'm working on a fish stranding project in Northern Ontario. So I haven't been a part of FishCAST for very long yet. But I've gotten to attend like the seminar series, which has been really great. Kind of piggybacking off of what Kevin said, it's really nice to see other opportunities and options outside of academia, because when you're in it, you don't see the other stuff. And I got to attend the traditional ecological knowledge field course at Point Pelee, and that was awesome. There wasn't a lot of Cook Lab members there, so I got to connect with other graduate students. So I'm hoping to see some of them at the upcoming conferences. And then my internship is with Evolution, who is like the hydropower operator on the rivers we work on, and we're working on a perspectives paper that is really connecting like the issues on the river and how they need to operate, and I feel like that was kind of the missing piece, so it's awesome. Yeah.
That is great, Reagan. And yeah, well, thank you so much for all your participation and everything too. And we're so excited that you're at the start of your journey, and I can't wait to see where you're going to go. This is amazing. And you're already working with your industry partner. That is fantastic. And yes, we will be connecting. If you're going to go to FishCAST in February or IAGLR, I think it's going to be May again. People could correct me. If you could put in the dates for IAGLR, the research conference, so everyone can see, that would be amazing. Excellent, Reagan. Thank you so much. And good luck with everything. And then, Casey is next. Thanks, Margaret.
Sure if you can hear me.
Sure can.
But my name's Acacia from Palmansa. I'm a PhD candidate at Carleton University. I, like most of the other PhD students on this call, am probably approaching my end in my time with FishCAST. I originally started with like the first group when I started my master's, so I've been in FishCAST for my entire graduate kind of career, and I've learned a lot. One thing that I have learned is that being a biologist has a different meaning to everybody, and I did not know when I signed up to be a biologist that I would have to learn to mix concrete. I would have to learn to figure out plumbing for tanks, or I would have to learn how to use a circular saw. So that was a new experience for me, and now I have a lot of carpentry and plumbing skills that I can apply, and maybe one day I'll be brave enough to tackle on making a deck in my backyard one day.
You will be. Raise your hands if anyone used power tools for the first time during their master's or their PhD. Yes, right? I remember I was jigsawing out in the middle of the outback during my master's. I'm like, I didn't think I signed up for this, but look at that. Now I actually built a deck, Acacia, so I can't wait to see photos of yours. So congratulations. I know you're approaching the end of your journey with us, and you've just been absolutely spectacular. So thank you for just choosing us to be on the journey with you. Oh, and yes, and I'd like for folks in the chat to put down what they use their tools for. So Izzy said to drill through, flow through buckets. And yeah, just let's commiserate together, folks. And we'll do field, and don't worry, we'll do lab stuff next. Don't you worry. All right. Thanks, Acacia, for sharing. Who do we have? Olivia, yes, please go ahead when you're ready.
Hi, everyone. My name is Olivia. I'm a master's student at the University of Windsor in the Picture Lab. I'm actually nearing the end of my master's as well as my internship. I'm doing my internship with DFO out of Burlington, and I wanted to include this cool picture here. Most of my internship has been online. However, last October, I got the opportunity to do some field work with my partner. This is actually in Big Otter Creek in Tillsonburg, Ontario. I'm on the right there, and Jason is on the left, one of my partners there. And this site is actually going to be the site where the endangered eastern sand darter is going to be translocated this year, which is actually really exciting that that's happening. But yeah, one of the biggest things I've learned through my internship is, kind of just seeing the behind the scenes of how species at risk conservation and recovery is happening for freshwater fishes in Ontario, especially those small body fishes that often get overlooked. And yeah, I'm just grateful to FishCAST for allowing me that connection and experience. So thanks.
Oh, thank you, Olivia. And I know that you've done some amazing work too with the partners across the border as well, if I'm not mistaken, with your internship. And that is a beautiful looking seine net. Have you ever had to repair that?
No, thankfully.
Oh, wow. That's amazing too. Because I'm looking at it with a lot of envy. I'm like, and it's a gorgeous site, a seine net. So it's another one, like hashtag seine net woes. Thank you for sharing this, Olivia. And I know you're approaching the end too. So it's just been really amazing. And thank you for all your contributions. And I've seen your face multiple times too, and which is outside of the University of Windsor connection. It's been really, really great. So good luck with your next steps. Can't wait to hear more. Righty. Who's next, Kendra? Hi, Andrew.
Hi, Tina. So the picture that everyone hopefully can see here is me at the American Fisheries Society annual meeting last fall. And when I was there, I presented results from the last two data chapters of my thesis. So I'm also getting close to the end of my time, hopefully as a graduate student and with FishCAST. But the work I presented there had the footprints of FishCAST all over it. Some of the work I did, it had to do with non-governmental contributions to freshwater fishery sustainability in Canada. And there's entire sections of that work that wouldn't be what they are and might not exist at all if it weren't for FishCAST and experiences like the field course in Indigenous and traditional ecological knowledge. The other work I presented had to do with transcript level responses to thermal stress in brook trout. So completely different stuff. But in that case, the multivariate statistics that I used for that project and then presented results from, I'm, somewhat comfortable with, competent in, and confident enough to actually talk about that kind of stuff because, again, of FishCAST and in that case, more specifically, the micro credential on multivariate statistics. So thank you, Tina, for that. I think the takeaway message is just that, yeah, FishCAST has its signature all over the work I've done. And the closer I get to the end of graduate school and my time with FishCAST, the more obvious all of that is. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Andrew. And if you're angling for a positive reference letter, you got it. Don't you even worry about it. I'm just teasing. No, it's been
Perfect. Thanks,
great,
Tina.
Andrew. And we've seen your contributions to it as well. And so, yeah, thank you. And it was really, really nice sharing that time with you in the TK field course too. And again, I'm really, really excited because you know what? You've done such a great job doing social, ecological, and human dimensions work as well as the transcriptomic. You're involved in other grants too. So it's nice to see the union between both sides. And again, like I've said to everyone else, you're going to be extremely successful. And I cannot wait to see that happen for you. So thank you for being part of FishCAST too. I really appreciate it. Alrighty, next. Markel, whenever you're ready. Wow.
Hi, everyone. I'm Raquel Morfitt, a PhD candidate at the University of Toronto, Scarborough, supervised by Dr. Nick Mandrak. So here is a photo of an iced over part of Lake Huron. And so what I kind of want to get across with this is that I really learned throughout this particular project that you can't always predict everything, and when doing field work and lab work as well, like you really have to take things as they come and just not get so overwhelmed when things don't go your way, even if you planned like the perfect field design, sampling design, then what happens. So in this case, obviously we couldn't launch a boat like this. And so this project, particularly climate change, stood in our way, as many of your projects probably have had as a barrier. Also related to communicating with partners. As I mentioned before, I work with Indigenous partners, and as Dr. Ibarra mentioned, you have to put the community first, and these events cannot be planned. So I really learned, and Indigenous relations micro-credential helped kind of like with the background of all this, but really learned, you can't plan everything, take things as they come and adapt. So yeah, thank you.
No, I know, Markel, thank you so much for sharing that. And it is a really good, a good message for everyone. You can plan as much as you can, and things won't always work out, whether or not it's in a community, whether or not it's in the water, whether or not it's in the lab. And Markel, we're probably going to continue on with our alumni series, seminar series. And so we're going to probably hit you up because you always have had such really, really deep and meaningful insights, and you're always willing to share that with us. So really, really appreciate that. So thank you very, very much. That was great. But it's still a beautiful photo. I know you couldn't get the boat out, but wow, what a beautiful day that was.
Thanks. I didn't take it. It was one of my partners, Cody Campbell, so I'll give him credit.
All right, yeah, you do that. Thank you. See, Markel, honest to fault. Honest to a fault. I love it. All right, next. Madeline.
Okay, Madeline's not here. Do you want to mute or do you want to read her?
Oh, yeah. You can read it. I'll mute myself.
Okay. Everyone, Madeline sent me a script to read, so I'm going to read it. It's from first person, so these are Madeline's words, not mine. This attached photo is of her and a summer student doing muscle ID. Through my time with FishCAST, I've learned about the importance of knowledge sharing, especially about specialized topics. I was fortunate to have the local conservation authority assist me with fishing and data collection through the summer when my field assistants were unable to. Rather than having the students scribe for me, I wanted them to have some hands-on experience. I was able to teach their summer students some fish ID skills as well as best handling practices. In the fall, I was asked to assist the Conservation Authority with mussel surveys where their summer students were able to share their in-depth knowledge of mussel species with me. It is easy to be focused on what you're doing and forget to involve your assistants, but it is far more rewarding to share your knowledge with them and be taught by them in other areas. So thank you, Madeline, for sharing that with us. And up next is Holly. Holly's a video, so I'll play it.
That's awesome. And I do see some overlap in some of the photos with Kristen. And they're both my students. So yeah, that's a ringing endorsement for the kind of work that I set my students to. But Holly, I know she's not here, but we're going to convey our deepest thanks to Holly for, sharing that with us. And it's so true. Field seasons are incredibly draining. And so the message is take care of yourself during the field season and then make sure you give yourself time to recover when you're out of the field season because it's really, really important. So thank you, Holly. That was amazing. Okay, who do we have next? Jana, whenever you're ready.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shayana. I'm a PhD student at the University of Windsor. I've been with FishCAST since the beginning. And a couple of things along this journey and being in the FishCAST program. There's a lot of things I appreciate about the program itself. You could see from our keynote speaker today that the program has always really valued bringing other perspectives into the fisheries that I don't think were always as prominent in training as grad students. So I love that all of the trainees get the experience, get to participate in that, especially with some of the micro-credentials. The other thing that I really like about FishCAST is that they look beyond just the stream and the fish to the habitat around them. And so as a researcher, my research has largely involved land use and what's happening in the watershed. And I really like that through the FishCAST program that all of that could be included, as investigations of fish habitat for their well-being. So, miigwech.
Miigwech, Shanna, thank you so much. And I always appreciated your love of the stats course. And you wanted to is there a second micro-credential follow-up to the advanced stats? I'm like, no, because it will surpass even my abilities. But please feel free to, because everyone's going to know their own stats. You could take it over and you could do the extra advanced stats. Yeah.
More conversations
was
to come for sure.
exactly. Thank you so much. And really, really lovely photo of a great blue heron, right? Okay. Yay. All right. Next, please. Jen. Did see Jennifer on the.
Yep, now I'm here.
Okay,
I
good.
just came in.
Yay. Phew.
Hi. So yeah, I'm Jennifer Powell. I'm in a PhD student in the Mandrake Lab, in her 4th year now. Although I'm not quite as close to finishing as some of the other people. So what I wanted to talk about today is the internship that I ended up doing through FishCAST. This came about kind of as from community members as we were paddling around in our survey areas. As you can see on the bottom of this, that's invasive Eurasian milfoil, and it could get really, really thick in some of our sampling sites. And a lot of community members would stop and talk to us about the milfoil problem and ask what we could do about it, or what they could do about it. And through some of those conversations, we got involved in some of their work to try to clean up the milfoil. And so through that, we got to, Madeline and I put together an internship to help test some control methods for the milfoil using burlap to help try to kill it off. But it turned into a really great community project that's involved with a community like homeowners association, the Oswego Bayfield Conservation Authority, University of Toronto. We got a grant from the Invasive Species Center. And then there was some money from FishCAST that was involved in that as well, and also coordinated with the Pinery Provincial Park. Now, it definitely ran, and as well as some local farmers and stuff who loaned us a burlap bag similar to sew our mats together. Unfortunately, the project was got put on pause because we also had to get permits from both the federal and provincial government, and there was a lot of delays, and so that didn't. And so that's where government doesn't always move at the same pace as the biological needs of things. So we will be continuing on with it this spring. But yeah, it's been a great learning experience in terms of like how to manage and coordinate community projects and with a lot of different partners. And hopefully we'll have some good outcomes.
Wow, Jen, what an incredible experience, and how well it was leveraged with so many partners involved. And it really seemed like it was something that was like, would you say like community driven as well? And then you got to participate with. That's incredible. I'm so glad it didn't end on a totally negative note, and that there's still hope for next year, that there's still interest and hopefully some funding and money for it too.
Well, we have a pile of rolled up burlap in a shed, so we're going to put it somewhere. Hopefully to good effect.
Yes, exactly. Okay, I can't wait to hear about this update from next year. So please keep us posted. This is amazing. So thank you for sharing it. Wow, I had no idea. That was great, Jen. Fantastic. Alrighty, thank you. Next. Dominic, are you? Yeah.
Here, I'll unmute for a minute. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and read for Dominique sent me a script. So this is first person again, her words. My name is Dominique, and I'm a PhD student under the supervision of Dr. Nicholas Mandrake and Dr. Scott Reed at the University of Toronto. Throughout my time with the FishCAST program, one thing I've learned that was very prominent in the last year was the power of collaboration. In 2024, I was lucky enough to experience collaboration in the workplace through an internship with the Aquatic Research and Monitoring section of the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, and a short-term work contract with St. Clair Region Conservation Authority. I was also lucky enough to attend the Ladernell Conservation Symposium as a student moderator, where the theme was the future of conservation and is collaboration. It was an amazing experience where I used a lot of skills I've developed through the FishCAST program. Lastly, I was able to visit local classrooms and school clubs in my area to talk about my research. the FishCAST program, and some of the amazing colleagues and allies that are part of this program. I look forward to continuing to reach a larger audience with my newly published children's book that was created to celebrate justice, equity, diversity, inclusion, and indigeneity. I'm extremely grateful for such a productive year made possible through collaboration, and it would not have been possible without the support of funders, internship and research partners, colleagues and collaborators, and of course, the support of FishCAST. Thank you. Thanks, Dominique. And I hope Dominique is feeling better. I know she had dental surgery, so hope your swelling is going down and you're feeling better.
Well, and I would say, like, for Dominique, if anyone has her details about the book she published, to put it in the chat, because that's fantastic. We'd love to support that. So, thank you, Dominique. Congratulations. Well done. And Noah. Very nice. Whenever you're ready. I know you were on the call before, so you might be muted. I'll take a look if you're still here. Let's see. Does anyone see Noah on the chat? You may have had to have gone. No. I don't actually know what Noah's holding up. It looks like a fillet of fish. But the title is How to Incorporate Different Ways of Knowing into My Research Using Knowledge Co-Production Strategies. Oh, okay. Well, we'll try to reach out to Noah and see. If he gives us a PowerPoint presentation or a little video, we'll upload that too. Thanks, Noah. Okay, next. Okay. Oh, that's fantastic.
And if I click on the video, you see.
Yeah. Oh, that's really great. I hope it was a success in going forward. That's really important work. So thank you to Mesa for sharing that with us. Yay. All right. Izzy, I think, is next up. Oh, and it's a picture of not Izzy. Okay, I won't spoil it. Sorry, Izzy. Go for it.
Hi. Yeah, this is a picture of Holly. Oh, but it's blocking the bottom part. That's okay. There's a smallmouth bass that Holly is holding. And I just wanted to kind of talk about how through the FishCAST seminar talks, as well as hands-on experience, I learned that working with community members can definitely have its benefits, like Kristen mentioned, but also can have its own challenges, especially with working with kind of controversial species, such as a smallmouth bass in the area, where they are quite invasive. But yeah, so I think most importantly, I've learned that knowing the impact that your research can have on different parties and different people in the community is very important moving forward. And also knowing how to effectively share your research in a way that the community understands especially with my project in particular, where there were people who really supported the smallmouth bass fishery and rely on it for their livelihood. But then there are also people that really support the species that the smallmouth bass may be impacting. And so all these challenges I would not have learned or kind of known how to approach if I had not directly been involved in it. And now I think I am much better equipped to handle such challenges in the future. And I really look forward to going back out there and working with the community some more.
That's fantastic, Izzy. Thank you. And I can see some similarities in between like this also being a complex resource system too, in terms of multiple folks with multiple ideas and in terms of what values they have and what's important. So you're contributing to that too. And do you find yourself like team smallmouth bass, team invasive species?
I don't think so. Personally,
Okay.
They are really fun to catch, but they're doing more harm than good, unfortunately. So
yeah, that's interesting. Thank you, Izzy, for sharing. That's great. All right. Okay, Nathan. Welcome, Nathan.
Thanks. Yeah, I was going to put up a picture of somebody else too, but he wasn't around for me to ask him if I could throw him up when I was uploading the photo. I don't take very good pictures. But yeah, the thing that I wanted to talk about was collaboration and leadership and sort of how those two interface. So I'm about a year into my FishCAST journey. And for me, most of the work that I've done so far has been in the field and then in the lab. And both of those things have been really, really repetitive in terms of just collecting samples in the same way over and over and then extracting those samples using the same recipe, which is basically just following a cookbook. So because of that, I think a lot of what I'm doing can't be achieved just by me alone. So I've had to lean on a lot of other people, mostly students, either as a co-op or as a volunteer or work study, that have sort of helped me get to where I am so far, about halfway through my project. And a couple things that I've learned so far, just in that experience as I grow as a leader, is number one, I have to like tailor my leadership strategy to match the student that I'm leading. So most of what I've done, or the one student that I had work with me the most, was exceptionally good to the point where if I were to just ghost everybody and leave the project, he could take it over and do just as good a job or a better job than me. So when I'm working with him, it's a lot of like stepping back and letting him sort of take like a co-project role versus with other people that are a bit less involved with the project and no less have spent less time with it. You have to step up and be a bit more of a manager on a fine scale level, I guess. But yeah, just being able to like know who you're working with and tailor your leadership to your team is, I think, the most important thing that I've found out so far.
Oh, that is great, Nathan, and thank you so much for sharing that. It's so true. In terms of taking a backseat role when you know that there's others that could, you want to basically let them shine. And just a quick story, I remember talking to a colleague, just someone I'd met, a researcher. No one's affiliated with FishCAST here, who I'm talking about. And they were actually a professor, and they said it was really hard for them when they got into the field to let go and not do everything. And they had PhD students and master's students. So the fact that you're learning about this early on, Nathan, and you're reflecting on that is just incredible. So thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, that's
It's
great.
tough. It is hard to be like, oh, but what if like this doesn't get done absolutely perfect? Or as if I know I'm doing it, it's going to be done. But yeah, it's definitely something to
Yeah.
work on.
Yeah. No, that's great. And then that's going to be where you're going to shine, is like just empowering others around you as well as yourself. So that's fantastic. So yes, I can't wait to see more from our new cohorts too. And thank you, Nathan. Is that all we have for today? Well, okay, can you please join me in giving a huge round of applause to all of our trainees and those that could be here, those that couldn't, and the fantastic work they're all doing. This has just been really, really incredible. I really, really appreciate it. We are not done yet because as part of the AGM, I will give like a 20-minute talk about what we've done in this past year. And then after that, we're going to announce our photo contest winners. And it comes with cash prizes, and we'll try to get the cash to you sometime in 2025. These university finance systems are not always the easiest to navigate, but why don't we take another health break? Let's reconvene at 2:05 Eastern, and then we'll just go into a nice quick debrief of this year's success of FishCast from another perspective, not just the trainees. So thank you again, trainees. It's because of you that we were looking so good. So thank you once again. Hi, everybody. Alrighty, let's just delve into a short presentation just to give you all a little bit more information about what FishCast has done over the past year, and as we celebrate these successes together. And I wanted to start off with when Kendra and I had to put together our second report to NSERC. So we did really, really well in our very first report. We had to say, okay, have we met our deliverables? Have we not met our deliverables? Why not? And if we passed, we could get more funding for the subsequent years of FishCast. And so we had to do a second round. We sent it in last November 2024. We haven't heard anything back yet, but they changed the requirements slightly from the first report to the second report. Don't worry, I'm going somewhere with this. And that was one of the new questions, was to actually and explicitly describe the 3 significant accomplishments of your CREATE program. So FishCast belongs to the NSERC CREATE program. And so we knocked our heads together, all of us, and it was our accomplishments were pretty easy to come up with. And they were the following. FishCast, we had a projected HQP target. So what is HQP? It's our highly qualified personnel. It's our trainees. And when we put our application together, we said we would probably have maximum 50 students by the end of the 6th year that have gone through the program, not from undergrads to graduates. We exceeded our target in the first 3 years. I think we're at, what are we at now, Kendra? 63 trainees in our program. It's been incredible. So we've far exceeded what we had said we were going to do. We've had a lot of undergraduates that started that transitioned to become graduate trainees, which is really great for this recruitment into our program. And as you heard from our trainees, these FishCast graduates were remaining in the program. So either they start off as a master's student and they graduated and they kept going as a PhD student in our program. They transitioned from a master's into a PhD to pursue a higher education alongside with us. And so you can see that in terms of recruitment, we're really, really proud of what we've been able to accomplish. Next, what we wrote about to NSERC was that our internship placement is high. A lot of the trainees, if you noted, you all spoke about some of these amazing internship possibilities and internship experiences that you've had in working either in the lab or out in the field or even on computer code. And so that was really great. And the reason why the internship placement is this high, I had to also contribute this and to celebrate this with our FishCast principal investigators. All of us have made these connections that can facilitate and help support our trainees. So a huge thank you to all of our FishCast PIs, and I'm gonna go through them. I'm really sorry. We've got Barb Zielinski, we've got Trevor Pitcher, we've got Brian Neff, we've got Brian Dixon, we've got Celine Odette, we've got Kat Fabria, we've got Daniel Heath, we've got Margaret Docker, we've got Tina, we've got Nick Mandrak, and we've got Steve Cook. And because of all those connections, this is why our internship placement is so high. It takes a village to help Tina remember everybody on our program. Also, and we're going to show a graph we're working on, FishCast graduates have found employment relative to their field. And we had actually our alumni, our seminar series, we brought back our alumni to give talks about where they are right now. And so we're really excited that our FishCast, our trainees are continuing into what they actually want to do. So the mobilization coming through our program is really, really good so far. Again, we still have a lot of students in the program, but I think we've graduated 25 graduate students. So I'm not even including the undergrads in this or postdoc. We also have a special issue with the Environmental Biology of Fishes. It's an international journal, and this was headed and spearheaded by Dr. Margaret Docker, and who's now transitioned over to the Great Lakes Journal of Great Lakes Research. But she was the editor-in-chief and put together the special issue on the next generation of fisheries management and conservation. And what's really great about this is that who do we have as guest editors? We have our FishCast trainees, both present and past, which includes Dr. Magliger as well, who was our FishCast postdoc, who's now a professor, assistant professor at Algoma University. And we also brought in Morgan Pishak, who was not part of FishCAST Trainee, but because of the connections and the relationships we have, we brought Morgan in as well. And so as acting as guest editors, it's been amazing. We've had some really great papers that have gone through that have already been published. And Margaret, please correct me if I'm wrong. I think we have switched the deadline. We've extended it to March 2025. If you don't mind putting in the chat just to update that so I don't get it wrong. But Ghislaine was even talking about this with her behavior paper, saying she's going to be submitting it to this issue. So amazing in terms of impact. So this is what we really, really highlighted in our report back to NSERC. NSERC also wanted to know the following. So these are just questions from the NSERC template. They asked us to briefly describe specific actions implemented to support EDI in recruitment, mentorship, and initiatives aimed at inclusive research and training. We actually had no problem thinking of what we were doing, because as all of our trainees know, and those of our members that are on our REMEDIC committee, our FishCAST application materials start with a statement to ask all of our trainees where they are in their JEDI journey, what they have experienced personally, where they hope to go. And so this is basically to help us understand how best to mentor the trainees coming into the program and how we can actually fill gaps or help support our trainees in terms of what we're offering through micro-credentials and seminar series and workshops that we do. We also do this through our mentorship. You've heard some folks and trainees talk about our micro-credentials. We have them that specifically kind of focus on EDI issues. We have, of course, our TEK course, our Indigenous Canada Relations micro-credential. There's field leadership and safety micro-credential, and others that really try to bring out and talk about this in the open, how to be an inclusive researcher and basically a humanist at the end of the day. We also, through this, have initiatives. From the very beginning, we wanted to really support our Indigenous scholars. And so we had an Indigenous scholarship that's still being ascribed to today. We've put on some diversity workshops that I'll go into a little bit, because we've had some really successful ones, both at the Society for Canadian Aquatic Sciences, IAGLR, which is the International Association for Great Lakes Research, and we even do our International Women's Day. I shouldn't use acronyms. And so we do this yearly. So this isn't something that we just did and we forgot about it, or we just did it late. This is something that's really important to us. Based on one of the outcomes of our diversity workshops, which we held, when was it, 2021 or 2022? 2022, thank you. And this was when it was still Canadian Conference for Fisheries Research. We held a workshop that was all about diversity and networking. And through there, we had some attendees. And I even think Kathleen is on this talk and on our presentation today, Dr. Church. But we published a paper that just came out last year based on the workshop on increasing equity and inclusion of early career professionals for conferences and conference networking in Canadian fisheries and aquatic science societies. From this publication, we were approached by the current president of FishCAST, Dr. Karen Smokorowski, and she read through the entire paper and she contacted me, and she wanted to actually go through our recommendations to make sure that FishCAST could fulfill some of the initiatives and some of the barriers that we spoke about, and to overcome them. And so this has really had an impact on the society so far. And because of that, FishCAST is holding a new workshop in February all about mentorship at FishCAST. So if you're going to Hamilton, if you haven't signed up, there's still space for you. We're co-creating a mentorship workshop, and this is something that FishCAST and the board has told me and signaled to me that it's something that they want to adopt even after FishCAST is done. So kudos to our trainees and to our FishCAST program for being so involved in this. A couple of years ago, Dr. Fabria and I, with Kendra, we applied for a fund from the University of Windsor, and it was, I think it was an EDI initiative for pedagogy and curricula. And we basically applied for funding to pay for an amazing researcher in Dr. Aisha Akram, along with our co-collaborator, Dr. Amy Fitzgerald from the University of Windsor, to come up with a survey that can basically tackle, and here's the title of it, it's called Casting a Wide Net, Quantifying the Impact of Decolonized Networking Practices in FishCAST. So we have put together an exit survey. So trainees, once you're done with us, expect a survey, because what we really want to do is to check. I'm saying all of these EDI initiatives we've done, I'm patting FishCAST on the back, but it really comes down to, is this real? Is this just something that I'm just saying, or is there actual substance to it? And this is why we want to really ask for feedback from the trainees who have been through the program. And so the trainees are asked to identify, okay, which components of FishCAST did you partake in that had JEDI, justice, equity, diversity, inclusivity, did you participate in while you're in FishCAST? So we have a whole bunch of options to tick. We're going to be increasing it because as we're going along. And then you're going to be asked questions, the general evaluation. So here are just some of the questions we just took screen grabs of. So did the program emphasize the importance? Did it encourage you to consider how you'll incorporate it? We're asking you questions on inclusivity and recruitment. Did it recruit trainees to your knowledge? Did it encourage respectful relationships with Indigenous communities? How did the program help to learn the importance? Again, these questions are continuing with mentorship opportunities as well. Did you receive any mentorship? Because again, even though FishCAST might end, we're always in talks and plans to see how we can continue FishCAST beyond this current iteration. And it's also really important as PIs to reflect on what is the type of EDI programming that we institute in our own labs, in our own research programs, in our own communities. So this will be fed back to everybody. So it's not just for FishCAST, it's for everybody. And of course, if you want to know the results, again, it'll come out in a couple of years' time. But a really interesting thing we wanted to do as well for the trainees is to ask them to revisit their initial JEDI statement that they put when they first applied to the program, and then to reflect on it to see, has it changed? Has it improved? What have you learned? And if you haven't, right, to score it that way. Again, it's not meant, again, to help validate how amazing FishCAST is, but it's to really help us out to make sure that now and in the future, what we're doing really does adhere to the principles and the values that we set forth in FishCAST. So that's it about in terms of the accomplishments and our initiatives. And I just wanted to give a quick update to who our trainees are. We got an amazing introduction to everybody in terms of what their experiences are. And this is just aggregate information. When the trainees first join our program, they're asked to state in terms of which career stream are they interested in. And you can see in the past year and a bit, most of the students, trainees coming into our program are really keen to join any research or get familiar with or even become experts in policy and applied research. And they're doing this through different research themes that they've identified through FishCAST. So the majority of our trainees are doing work, and they're part of labs that are looking into fish health and fitness, as well as looking into ecosystem and habitat assessment. So this changes from different cohorts to different cohorts, but towards the end, we're really seeing this preponderance of policy in the form, again, of fish health and fitness, as well as habitat and ecosystem health. In terms of how many students, I mentioned before that we've gone way past our initial estimates. We're actually near 70, so I think that's 67. We've graduated just over 40 students out of the program. It's been really good. So again, we thought we would get no more than 50 by the end of 2026, and we're not even there yet. We are slowing down because a lot of our labs are full, but that's because we want to have as much of a great experience for our trainees that are going through our program. Kendra's also, and we're working on this, it's a work in progress, and we're trying to see, okay, with the students that have graduated through FishCAST, where are they today? And so some of them we don't know yet, and some of them you're going to be finishing pretty soon, so we're going to be adding to this. So how you read this graph is that if a student interned in academia, an NGO, a government, or an industry project, you see that at the bottom legend, then where are they today? What's their job placement? So for example, are they now in academia? Are they doing further studies? So academia means they've got a job in academia. Further studies means that they're continuing a postdoc, maybe a PhD somewhere else, or are they still in FishCAST? But again, you can see that there are a lot of students, whether or not they, we'll take a look at the second bar. I don't know if you can see my mouse moving, but this tells me that if they interned with an NGO or government, now they're with an NGO working. Here we go. If they intern in government, they're working with government. I know we're going to try to move through these numbers and try to get a really, really clear picture of where they are. This is something that's of interest to us, but this is something that's really of interest to NSERC too, because the whole purpose of a CREATE grant is to make sure trainees have jobs when they come out of it. We welcomed new FishCAST internship partners. We heard from some today. Evolution, we heard one of our trainees mention. We also have the Center for Aquaculture Technologies. We've got the Biodome of Montreal, and we've got the Margerie Salmon Association. So we welcome our partners. We have so many amazing partners on our team and in our community. We're just so grateful for them. And then our PIs are still making connections too. It's not static. It's amazing. It's dynamic and it's changing. And I love to see this too, because this really goes to show how we're shaping and the new connections that we're all making and helping to network with our own trainees. I've mentioned this before. We have an amazing seminar series, and for 2024, the theme was our former FishCAST trainees. So we had Roland, we had Jess, we had Brooklyn, and Christian, who gave us all talks about what they learned through FishCAST, what they're doing now, what are some of the challenges. And so you could start hearing that through some of the trainees talking right now, challenges, expectations, experiences, what they learned from FishCAST and how it's helping them now in their job, where they are in their job, what was important, what they discovered was even more important, and how they balanced everything. So I absolutely loved it. I am Kendra. It was fantastic, wasn't it? And we've got them all up on YouTube. So we've got our YouTube channel. Throw that in the chat. We can take a look at that. So thank you so much to our former trainees. It was really inspirational. Made me very, very happy. We offered 5 micro-credentials during 2024 and early 2025. Of course, we had the traditional ecological knowledge course. We had the, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. We had co-production course with Steve Cook. We had advanced statistics and field leadership and safety by me. And we had publishing and editing with Dr. Margaret Docker. We're working now together on a TEK course for May 2025, end of May. That's going to be led by Dr. Stephen Cook and Nick Mandrak, where we're going to try to braid TEK with some Western science up at potentially Queen's Biological Station. We don't know that I don't want to make any promises, but that's what we're heading towards. But in talking about our TEK course for 2025, it was just, so many folks were involved to make it as special as it was that it would be remiss of me not to just to say a huge miigwech and to thank them. And so our programming was led by Clint Jacobs from Kejwanong. Organization was Candy Donaldson and Kendra. Our nature guides were Elder Ron Sands and Larry Cornelius. We had water teachings done by Elder Tracy Whiteeye. We had a paint night instructor, you can see in the photo on the bottom right hand, by Moses Lunham. Our trainee leaders were from FishCAST, Lauren and Tharanya, who couldn't be here today. We had Indigenous youth helpers, Tristan and Mike and Kinu. We had Jill and Jeff helping with lacrosse teachings, language teachings, and Anishinaabe canoe and kayak leadership training. And we even had member cast from the Ojibwe Nature Center to also help with lacrosse teaching. And we had co-participants because we decided from early on that we wanted our TEK course to actually be co-participated with not just FishCAST trainees, but Indigenous youth and stewards and those from the Kejwanong eco keepers and guardians, because this was an opportunity to show that the future of our trainees, this is the land they're going to be working in, these are the people they're going to be working with, and to start to forge meaningful relationships as co-learning is happening at the same time. So I really, really wanted to always thank the initiative with Dr. Kat Fabria to really push for the co-participants in our TEK course. So miigwech, Kat, that was amazing of you. And thank you to everybody who participated, as well as the trainees who attended. In May of 2024 in Waiwaitanong in Windsor, IAGLR was held. And of course, whenever there's a conference in fisheries and aquatic sciences, FishCAST wants to be there. But we did an amazing co-workshop with the African Center for Aquatic Research and Education, known as ACARE, and the African Women in Science. And it was really great because it was all about the Great Lakes. The African Great Lakes, the Laurentian Great Lakes. What were some of the commonalities to share? What were some of the networkings that could be, we can anticipate? What were some of the barriers that were common or that were unique to the peoples in each of these areas and the landscape themselves? So again, a huge thank you to the folks that were involved in this. We had our trainee leaders, was it Alfred, Thoranya, Kevin, Zenat. We had Stephanie from ACARE, who was I think the program coordinator. We had Alice, Claire, and Zion. And our mentors, obviously, besides Dr. Fabria, who was there, but sorry, Kat, your name should have been there. My apologies. It was Margaret, it was Dan, it was Nelson, Geraldine, and Jennifer from this, I think it's a consultancy agency, WSP, Environmental Consultants. So that was amazing of them all. And you can see everyone being it was fantastic. And I don't know if you could all see it, but we had bingo stamps. So like, who doesn't love a good bingo? So that was amazing too. So, oh, was that? Oh, Elder Lucy was there as well. I didn't know. Thank you, Kat. Oh, I really appreciate that. Oh, thank you. All right. We have our new trainees, our cohorts 4. So you heard from Nathan, who I believe is holding a sea lamprey. Then we have Izzy and Holly, who are both holding a frog. And I really hope it's not the same frog because that poor little frog. But very, very cute photos. And so welcome to you 3. And again, we're so happy to be here for your journey. And thank you for sharing it with us. And tell us what you need. Tell us what you want. So thank you, our new trainees, and thank you to our current trainees. I couldn't put everyone's photo. I don't actually have everyone's photos. And so please, Kendra's going to be reaching out to you. We want to be able to present everyone's photos here with permission, but we really want to know that the reason why FishCAST is so, in my mind, successful is because of you, the trainees themselves, who really, really make it special and to make it better every time with each iteration. So a huge thank you, a merci, a big miigwech to everybody. Of course, our community is not just our trainees, but it's our wider community as well. So thank you to our PIs. Thank you to our partners who sit on our committees. Thank you to our partners who mentor our interns. And so again, we really, really appreciate everything that you do for us. And it takes a village to make this such a success. And so we're very, very grateful and appreciative of it. And again, I wouldn't be here. And that's why I have my co-conspirators next to me, Dr. Fabria, Kendra Thompson Kumar, and please join me in giving them a huge thank you as well. And a huge heart, because we really couldn't be here and be so successful without them. So that is all I have for you. And I really, really appreciate it. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can take any questions that you might have. So please let me know. Izzy, it was a seam toad. Okay. I'm just kidding. Yeah, so many good people. So thank you very, very much, everybody. So I know you've all been waiting for this because we now have our photo contest. And Kendra, can you tell us just how much people are going to be winning or what? Is it too soon?
Oh, no. I was going to say, Dina did want to present real quick.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to give her the floor.
Thank you. Okay, Zena, please take it away.
I want to say thank you for taking me in, and I met a lot of people, especially in the field course, and I thank you, Kendra, to give me the ride back and forth to the Point Pili, and it's like a lot of amazing things I learned from during the field course, and uh, this is my first time doing the field course. It's like overcome my I always afraid of going outside with someone doing the work, and it was amazing that I learned a lot, and it give me the really confident that I can go meet other people and talk a lot about my research too. And also I work in the internship in the biodome, and I met a lot of people, different people, taking care of behind the scene of the different animals and the species they are exhibiting in the biodome. And I just showing the few of the pictures, like the golden poison frog and the wood turtle. These species are really vulnerable, and they put a lot of effort, how they're taking care of these fishes and these species. And also I work with, usually I would have worked with the olfactory system, because that's my PhD. Usually my PhD, I did my PhD in chemosensory systems and learned about a lot of this during my PhD. But that project I couldn't able to do it, but other than that, I able to like participate in another project where I learned about white blood cell immune system about those the fishes, and I look at them under microscope. It's a really cool research they are doing and how they're taking care of the different fishes.
That's great. Thank you so much, Zena. Yeah. And thank you too for participating in our workshop. That was fantastic. And if you're ever in Montreal, the Biodome has an amazing insectarium, an amazing pollinator garden. Did you have an opportunity to see that, Zena? A
Yes,
beautiful garden.
I went with my daughter.
Oh, good. Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. Oh, good. Well, thank you so much for sharing. That was really, really nice of you, Zena. Thank you. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Kendra. And Kendra, can you tell us what the prizes are for first, second, third?
Okay, so we have 4 categories: beauty, fun, connections, and mishaps. First prize is $150. Second prize is $100, and third prize is $75. And I started last year giving an honorable mention, which I give a $50 prize for. So, so yeah, let's get started with the beauty category. So in third place, we have Casey. Gorgeous sunset picture.
Nice. Congrats.
Second place, Reagan Davis. I don't know if anybody wants to jump on and talk about their pictures too. That's fine with me. You can always cut me off. And then in first place, we have Isabel Tremasi. I don't know if that's the same toad.
That poor frog.
These are voted on. I should have said these are voted on by our trainees, so it's not me picking like first, second, third place.
For some context,
congratulations.
this toad we caught him in a fike net, and he was in recovery. This is the recovery station.
Oh, is that a little band-aid across its wrist?
That's his little flower from his visitors in the hospital.
Okay.
Oh, nice. Okay. So our next category is fun. In third place, we have Markel Morfett. In second place.
Can you go back? I just want to rest with it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, okay.
I should have written down the captions for it. Sometimes people send me captions, sometimes they don't. But I didn't write down the captions for each one. My apologies. Second place, Reagan Davis again.
Doesn't look like Reagan's doing the work.
And in first place, Olivia Galloway.
Oh, that's fantastic. If Olivia's still here, how big was that surgeon?
It was over 100 pounds.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she's
Amazing.
beautiful. You can just see the pure joy.
What a cat.
Okay. Our next category is connections. In third place, we have Kristen Sear. This is actually before and after field work, so you get to see the building of the connection. Second place, Olivia Galloway again. This is one of my favorite categories because I love seeing everybody collaborating with their partners and with other students. So it's always a fun category to look through. And in first place, we have Dominique Rumball. And this was actually put into because I always leave a box where put photos in if you can't decide which category it goes in. So this was put in that I don't know where to put it category. And I'm like, you know what? They're connecting. They're building a little friendship in the mud. So, and people seem to connect with that. So
Yay,
congratulations, everyone.
Beautiful turtle. Soft shell, right?
Yes, tiny soft shell.
Brilliant.
Okay, and then the final category, mishaps. Third place, Kevin Deli. I believe he said something about how this Chinook salmon, he got a little too excited during the photo op. You can see his mouth is wide open.
And he's milting, yes.
Oh, okay. I will, yeah.
He's like, yeah, I need to save that sperm.
Next is Holly Moscow, which you might recognize this photo. She used it during. Wait, I can't remember who used this during their lightning talk.
It's Kristen.
It was Kristen.
And Holly.
Yeah, I don't recall which one used it, but yeah, it was also submitted in the photo contest. And then in first place, and I really like this first place one. This was, I think it was labeled, I thought you were asleep. So, oh, it cut off. There was yeah, sorry, I did not notice that it cut off. There was a fish here. I'm not sure what kind of fish, but apparently it had a muscle reflux. And so you see the look of surprise. Is his face?
That's Holly.
Oh, that's Holly. Oh, okay, on Holly's face. Yeah. So, yeah. And then our honorable mention goes to Nathan. He sent in photos for every category. So, yeah. And then thank you to everyone. So these are just the random ones. But yeah, thank you for always coming through for the photo contest. So congratulations, everyone. And I will be in touch with you about prize money.
Beautiful. Thanks, everybody. That was fantastic. I just want to thank everybody for being here today, devoting this a big chunk of time. Dr. Sonia Ibarra as well, and our trainees, our PIs, our partners who stayed with us to the very end. And I just want to say that 2024 was such an amazing year for FishCAST. 2025 is starting out to be really, really great. And I'm so eager and anticipate what's going to be happening for the rest of the year. So I know I have a bit of an echo. But you know why? I think it's Kendra.
Oh, sorry.
No problem. And I'm sorry if that was an echo for everybody else, but you know what? It's my voice. It's just it echoes in your skull that you're like, is it Tina or is it the comms? All right. So you know what? That's all we have for you. I want to thank you so much. And again, we'll see you again. Stay tuned for our workshop in February. Stay tuned for our TEK course in May. Stay tuned for other announcements. Our environmental biology of fishes deadline for March 31st to submit your papers. And we're going to be rolling out other things like our other micro-credentials. So again, and what else? Seminar series. Oh my gosh, we have so much programming. So we're so excited. I hope you are too. So thank you everybody for this wonderful afternoon that we shared together. Miigwech, merci tout le monde. And until next time, bamapi, and à bientôt. Thank you everybody. Bye. Mm-hmm.